Every time I manufacture pharmaceuticals, people ask me whether to choose a pure agonist such as this or a partial agonist. I can relate to the people that like the pure agonist on the basis of its leftward position on the dose-response curve, and you can clearly see the chemical advantage offered by the advanced potency. But that's just a small part of the story. You really must consider the onset of action as it applies to Fick's law of diffusion. The partial agonist has similar receptor protein affinity and intrinsic efficacy, but due to its decreased potency, a much higher dosage is warranted, and thus a higher concentration gradient can be achieved. In truth, I much prefer a more racemic mixture that can optimize the benefits of each enantiomer without excessively promoting the unwanted side effects of the individual counterparts. And let's not forget the amount of ionization that will occur if I expose my acidic host with this raw base. It is absolutely essential that we dilute the mixture in order to neutralize its pKa to a more physiologic pH. Let's set our drug aside for a moment while we take an overview of some key metabolic cellular processes. All signal transduction pathways must begin with the cell. It is an essential building block of life, and without the membrane, there would be no barrier with which to establish an ion gradient. Without an ion gradient, there can be no cellular activity. Now, if you look at this cell in particular, you may be able to see that it is not only enzymatically downregulated, but also, looking closer, you can see that much of its energy source has already hydrolyzed. In these events, I commonly administer stress dose cyclases. These cyclases bathe the transmembrane domain to assist with dimerization and dissociation of the subunit complex during the conformational shift. Establishing the right dose is still debated in literature, though its inclusion has a small but undeniably pivotal role in accelerating the second messenger system, as you'll see in the final product on the effector site. Now we mustn't forget two very important components of the signal cascade prior to the second messenger. One is very lipophilic and can cross the cell membrane where it is available for binding. The other is hydrophilic and does not cross the membrane. Its effects pertain to signal amplification, a process by which it helps to activate intracellular enzymes via phosphorylation. It should be noted that both of these components serve as important cellular buffers to maintain the pH within a range that is tolerable to its effector site. It is rare to see any of these components in isolation outside of the laboratory environment, but now that we have finished our overview, we can restore the cellular composition to its original state. Now that our homeostatic mechanisms are in place, let us observe the membrane receptor response to our racemic mixture. Remember that there are few different dosing schemes that may influence the final product. A large bolus dose should be avoided to prevent a gross overdose of therapeutic range. Increasing the frequency of dosing can maintain the cellular state in the therapeutic window without risking toxicity. With enough patience and at least 4 half-lives, a steady state can be achieved. Notice how the volume of distribution continues to expand outward from the central compartment over time. Now that the receptors are fully bound to the agonist mixture, our subunits will begin to dissociate, and our enzymes are now able to facilitate the transfer of the signal to the second messenger system. The second messenger requires significant cellular energy to complete its tasks, and is therefore the rate-limiting step of the cascade. Now begins an additional cascade of events caused by the second messenger. Although the exact mechanism is poorly understood, it is believed to involve the cytosolic release of various electrolytes that make the signal chemically delicious. The magnitude of this change is dependent on the deliciousness to laziness ratio. Allow me to reiterate, it's a poorly understood mechanism. If the signal has made it to this point, it has reached its site of effect, where a breakdown of the signal may begin.
In some cases,
In some cases, this begins an uncontrollable positive feedback loop.